Sorry about that, guys. Apparently, somebody keeps saying that our videos are against YouTube policy, so they just decided to keep canceling it. And I mean, come on, whoever's out there just doing this crap, just don't come here because people like to enjoy this little bit of session that we do. So, you know what? If you're reporting live streams, get a freaking live. I mean, seriously, or maybe do one yourself if you don't agree with what we're doing here. But anyways, just stay out of what we do because I think the people who do come here and do watch it get to have some fun and ask some questions. So don't ruin it for the rest of the people because it's Saturday night and we could all be doing something else. So just quit the crap, whoever the heck's doing it. So anyways, let's get back to the topics. Again, I'm just going to update you guys a little bit. I see you guys inside chatting. You can start putting any questions you will. I'm going to get to them in just a few minutes. Again, we've been adding tons of stuff to the website and really kind of critiquing that, making it a one-stop shop, or getting that shipping down as cheap as we possibly can, getting some cool new products, and of course, always the best variety of Pac-Man you're going to find in one place on the web anywhere. I guarantee that. And the prices are insane as well because you're buying breeder direct. So some cool new frogs that we do have for sale this week. We're having a flash sale right now on buy one get one free milk frogs. Last time this sale was insane. You guys went nuts over it, so I decided to do it again. And when they're out, guys, they're out. So I don't know how many we have left on the site as far as inventory, but whatever's up there's up there. So definitely take advantage of those. I mean, you don't get to see buy one get one free milk frogs very often at all. So milk frogs, we have chocolate milk frogs that are in that are doing really, really cool. They're amazing looking frog. So if you like something different and is not always out on the market and has ridiculously easy care, that's the one who, the species I'd go with. Blue back reed frogs, starry night reed frogs. We got all that stuff. We get a lot of questions about when our blue-eyed honeys going to come back in stock. We're waiting to breed them again. They're just not ready. I'm not going to breed the heck out of our breeders. We try and really watch about how many times we're breeding them, and we don't want to put added stress there that we don't have to. So, trying to think if there's anything else update. We're going to concentrate. I am going to take questions, but we're going to concentrate on a little bit of supplementation tonight because I can tell you that 80% of people who call me during the week do not have it right. They do not have the right products on the shelf. And while they may be muddling through the whole calcium and MBD issue, it's not the best that we can do for our animals. And, that is what we're here for. If we're going to keep them in captivity, in my opinion, to give them the best that they could do. So we are going to go over some supplementation and the different products that are out there this evening, which I think is very, very, very important. A lot of people overlook it. They don't have anything on their shelf where they just think any calcium is good calcium, and that is not the case. I love Repashy. We use Repashy here. I've used it for a decade. Back in the leopard gecko days, we used it too. It's just a phenomenal line with all kinds of very specific products, but people get confused with the different products and what they could be used for. So we're going to touch upon that tonight. The WHO says dogs and cats can carry the coronavirus. Are you afraid that there could be similar threats with frogs? And opinions on desert rain frog, the squeaky frogs from the memes. We actually got a couple calls about those rain frogs this week, and I don't think they should be kept in captivity. I mean, they're screaming because they're stressed, and people like to hear that. So I just simply don't think that the rain frog is a great pet. They bury 4 or 5 inches underneath the soil. They're not visible at all. They don't do well in captivity. They're very stressful animals, and that whole video with the one squeaking, yeah, it's adorable, but the thing's stressed, and it's really, really mad. It's just not. It's borderline abuse to just keep getting the thing this week. So we've had them in the past. We have sold them many years ago, and I just don't agree with them as a pet. They don't do well. No, I don't believe the coronavirus is going to go on to frogs. You're talking warm-blooded species to cold-blooded species, and that would be a phenomenal jump for any virus or anything. And I don't think that's going to happen. Um, so let's talk about supplements a little bit while we get some more people to join us here and get some more questions. So basically, there's three different supplements that I use here in house, and the key to any good supplementation regime is rotation, and rotation of good quality products. And there's a couple tips that I'm going to give you here tonight to make sure that your products stay quality. So basically, there is in three we use Calcium Plus. I like to use Supervite, and we also use the Vitamin A, all Repashy line. Calcium Plus is a really nice multivitamin and also your calcium in one. Uh, it's a really great calcium source. Vitamin A source, not so much. Vitamin A in frogs needs to be basically preformed. And without getting into all the scientific nitty gritty of it, the frogs need to be able to metabolize it properly. They cannot metabolize not preformed vitamin A very well, aka retinol. That's why we use Repashy's vitamin A, because it is preformed vitamin A. And if you look at the values, you're talking 2 million international units versus 200,000 of vitamin A and calcium plus they really can't use. So you're talking, it's the most purest you could get for these frogs. You really need to have vitamin A on your shelves for any kind of frog. White tree frog, Pac-Man frog, I don't care what you have, red-eyed tree frog. Now here's the kicker. Vitamin A is fat soluble. So there's water soluble, there's fat soluble vitamins. Water soluble can be digested and passed through the systems, even through us, much quicker because it's water soluble. Uh, Fat soluble is stored in fat, so that it takes a lot longer for these concentrations to come down, which means you don't have to take them as much or you don't have to give as much. I use vitamin A once a week with all the frogs, the Repashy vitamin A. Now, so you ask, well, what do we do with the rest? The rest of the week, we alternate Calcium Plus and Supervite. Supervite is also a calcium and D3 formulation, but it's a little bit different. It's close, but again, the key is to rotate. Now, there's some other really good supplements on the market. Mineral is a really good one, but it's an all-in-one. It's not very specific. It's fantastic supplement as well. There's try to think of another really good one. Repcal is a really good one, but there you're just going to basically get calcium or calcium with D3 or without D3. So it is a really great calcium supplement, but again, it's lacking all the vitamin A and things like that. They do have a multivitamin, which I found was very, very good for all the lizards and things that we used to do. The frogs, not so much. They didn't really kind of care for it. So I personally, the multivitamin that is made by Repcal, it's ridiculously fine, which is really good. But I just didn't find it good for the frog world, which is why I landed on the Repashy vitamin A, and I've been using that for many years, and I love it. Now, a lot of people are going to ask, well, why is vitamin A so important? This is why vitamin A is so important. There's many, many things that it does in the body, but a lot of times we'll get questions where, well, my frog strikes at the food, but it can't eat it. And the reason being is frogs have a mucus on their tongue, just like we do, but it's a little more stickier. It's a very heavy mucus. So when they get that cricket or whatever you're feeding them, it sticks to them and they can eat it. Vitamin A is a crucial part to that. If they don't get enough vitamin A, they get what's called sticky tongue disease, which is actually quite the opposite. They aren't producing enough mucus, so they can't eat. So eventually they start starving to death. So it is ridiculously important to have some type of preformed retinol, vitamin A in their diet. And that's the big deal. Now, obviously, most people understand that if you don't have calcium, you're going to run into MBD issues. But you really got to pay attention to calcium and phosphorus ratios. That differs between different species, what they need or what they don't need. But you don't want one that has a really high calcium ratio and a really low phosphorus ratio, because you need both to metabolize calcium. So if you're using a lower quality calcium, it's not helping either. And that's why you see people that say, well, I use calcium, religiously, but I'm having MBD issues, because you're not spending the $2 or $3 extra to get a good calcium source, and that might not be your fault. You just need the information, and that can be fixed. That's why we're here. So that's very very important. Some of these fly by night calcium, I see a lot of people, like certain brands, or they pick up certain brands from the big box stores, and you know, I'm not here to endorse one or the other. I mean, obviously we sell Repashy, but I also like Repcal and I also like Mineral. We don't use them, but I think they're very good supplements, and I see no problem with using them. But there's ones like, Flukers or Herptivite. I mean, they're ones that I have personally tried and I've had no luck with, and I wouldn't use them again. So just make sure you're getting a really good quality supplement. Here's the other kicker, guys. You ever wonder why most vitamins and minerals are in a light-proof container, meaning it's dark or black? All Repashy is black, because UV light, actually breaks down the vitamins and minerals. So you might have a guaranteed analysis of 2 million micrograms of vitamin A, but if you leave that top open and the sunlight or the UV lights from your room get in there, all of a sudden it's degrading your product. So storage of your products, your supplements, is ridiculously important. Make sure you put that lid on. Make sure you put it in the fridge. Here's the other thing. After 6 months, throw it away. It has a shelf life, and that shelf life is very important. After you open that seal, you get 6, maybe 7. Seven's where I draw the line. But guys, this stuff isn't expensive. And we're talking about, you know, MBD or sticky tongue disease or some other things which are going to cost hundreds of dollars to fix, and hundreds of labor hours. And you're going to end up hurting the animal. So for a $10 jar of good calcium, and vitamin A every 6 months, to me it's worth its weight to buy that. So refrigerate it, mark the date at the top so you know when you opened it. After 6 or 7 months, make sure you get another one in so you have it on the shelf. It's pennies in a dollar, guys. So that's my talk I wanted to give tonight on the supplements, because I've had a lot of questions. 90% of the people who've called me do not have vitamin A at all. They don't have it. It's just not there. Most have a calcium source. I'd say half of the people who've called or emailed don't have a calcium source, which I would say is sufficient enough. So make sure you get sufficient supplements and you're doing it right, and you will save yourself, I'm telling you, a lot of heartache. You will save your animal a lot of heartache, and you will make things a lot better and healthier for the animal. And remember, 90% of issues with animals, frogs, leopard geckos, beer dragons, and this is coming from over a decade of licensed exotic and AZAZU work. It's husbandry related, guys. 90% of the problems when the animals come in. A lot of people like to blame, oh, it's got a disease, it's got a pathogen. Most of that is not that. It's a husbandry related, and if they have some kind of pathogen, it's generally, again, related to poor husbandry. So if there's something wrong, check the husbandry first, because 9 times out of 10, literally 9 times out of 10, it's a husbandry issue. So now that we're off of that, let me get into some of these questions here. Uh, yeah, the story is getting bigger. Definitely not Josh's Frogs, but I consider Josh's Frogs like the place in the industry. I have nothing but respect for those guys. Talk to them almost every other day, just talking about various things and keeping our finger on the the dial to see what's going on there. So, hey, Sean, thanks for coming. If you breed a Samurai B, will they produce Samurai A's? Um, you may, but it's going to be a lot lower number. So it is a line bred trait, meaning you're line breeding that color, and you always want to start, especially with like a nice male. Hopefully you get a male out of the batch. You want that male to be the nicest color you could get because he's the one who's going to be able to spread all his genes around to all the other females you're using. Um, the other key is if you want nice samurais, you have to breed samurai to samurai. Otherwise, you're muddying the water. Since it's line bred, think about it this way. If I had this is obviously a figure of speech, but let's say I had a red frog, all red, pure red, like the crayon, and I bred it to an all yellow frog. And this is not how genetics work, but I'm just trying to make a point. And I bred them together. There's the red and the yellow. Well, then I would make orange frogs, right? Red, and yellow makes orange. So same thing. You diluted down the color. You changed the color. You went from a very high quality, so you're not going to get any reds out of that cross. You're going to get somewhere in the middle there from, orange. So it's the same way. If you have, two really nice blues and blues, you're going to make nice blues. So you always want the best color blue that you can get into that mix for breeding. And that's why, you know, I don't know how many holdbacks I have down there, probably close to 100. We keep and we raise and we see who's better and who's going to make the cut because obviously we always want to get better and better genetics and better looking frogs. So it's a great question. And it works great. And I don't know if you got to see our genetics video that we did last time. And it goes over a lot of genetic stuff. I think you'll really enjoy it. How does Pac-Man's get the vitamins in the wild? Great question. So you have to keep in mind that these animals in the wild, and I don't care if it's a red-eyed tree frog or if it's a Pac-Man frog, they're eating a much higher variety of food, and their food isn't farmed. They don't sit there next to their pond and wait for somebody to come over with a batch of hornworms or a frozen thawed rat. So the difference is they're eating whatever's coming by. Number one, the bugs and the fauna are different where they live, so they have a much more balanced diet. And also keep in mind these are predators to a certain point. Animals in the wild would be picked off by a certain age as well. If they're found, it's much different. It's not as controlled. But yes, they are getting a little bit of UV from the sun, but these are Pac-Mans, going back to your question, are not basking animals. So UV is not necessarily required for their care. It isn't going to hurt them. I don't think UV for any reptile is going to hurt them to a certain point. So yeah, that's definitely going to help as well. And UV helps synthesize D3. So if you're giving D3 and D3 and D3 and there's no UVA lights, UVB, um, they're not really using it all that much too. There's a lot of science to all of the supplementation, and it gets really confusing. There's a lot of misconceptions out there. I see, or people say, or I see it in different forms, things like that. So we really got to, you know, and I don't think people ever say this stuff to be malicious. I think it's more so it's a whisper down the alley. You hear certain things, but I think very few people have actually sat down and read about it and really learned about it and how all these things are synthesized and how they work in the body. So that's why I really want to focus on supplements here. Um, Does that apply to all rainflowers, all rain frog species, or just the one discussed? I think it's mostly because Madagascar rains, which are different from the rains that you're talking about in that particular video. That's a desert rain, an African species. There's 2 or 3 Madagascar rains, which we see come in imported. Now, again, all rain frogs are imported. Nobody has bred them to that I know of in captivity in the States, or maybe in a very long time, if ever. So I think the Madagascar rains make a much better pet. They're a lot more visible, a lot more hardy, um, but they're totally look different. They don't squeak like that, and that's why people want the other ones, because they have this high pitched squeak, and it's cute. But the reality of it is, it's not cute. It's just like Budget's frogs. Everybody's probably seen the video with the Budget frog screaming his freaking head off. It's mad. And if you think about it, when you get mad and you're yelling and you're frustrated, is that fun? No, not at all. So that frog can't be having fun. I have Budgets down there, and just like if you watch the feeding video, they'll scream and yell at me, and then they'll eat and go, "Oh, wait a minute, I'm not mad anymore. You just fed me," But that's their reaction. So you really have to kind of take that into consideration. All right. Any other questions, guys? Feel free to comment in there. I'm just going to check the page really quick to see if anybody has posted on the page. I always think of a list of things that I want to tell you guys, because it's always a couple weeks before I get to have a nice quiet house, with no 6-year-old running around, and then I forget all of the points I want to tell you when I come on. Okay, so Sarah here had a question. How often should substrate be changed? Has a false bottom barrier and 3 to 5 inches of coconut fiber for 4 tomato frogs. I don't know how big the tomato frogs are, but I would say 5 inches is probably a little deep for tomato frogs. I would probably do like 2 inches, especially if they're babies. But the good rule of thumb, and again, it depends how big her tank is. It doesn't say that there. But if it's a 10-gallon rule of thumb, rule of thumb monthly needs a whole change unless it's bioactive. That's another thing, guys. We have bioactive stuff coming in down the line here too. We're going to have a whole line of isopods and springtails. So keep an eye out for that. I do have coffee tonight. Yeah, yes, I just made. It's not that the one we talked about last time. I gotta find it out. I just haven't had time to search and find that. Um, Dragon Mother, do you breed all the different frog species on your site, or do you get them from other breeders as well? We try to do as much breeding in house as we possibly can, but the problem with that is no frog breeder can do everything. I'm very specific about where we purchase from. Josh's Frogs, we work very closely with them. So we do get a lot of our obscure different species to them. We do not generally just buy from any breeder out there who has like 20 Santa Isabellas, because I believe very hardcore on biosecurity. I purchase from basically two people, two other breeders, much larger breeders, and myself. Sometimes three, but that's it. But I've been doing business with those other breeders for many, many years, and never have any issues. So, um, yes, we do breed the majority of our Pac-Mans. We do breed the majority of our White's tree frogs. Um, we breed Spinosa here. We breed all our Borneo eareds here. All of the reed frogs generally get bred here. And a lot of this stuff it's seasonal here and there, and that's why you only see it once in a while. Good question. I don't understand your question, Dark Master, about tomatoes and their closely related species. If you can type that out for me a little better, I'd be more than happy to answer. Do you see your business expanding more than frogs? Absolutely not. Um, past dry goods and feeders, and it's just me and we basically it's just me and two other guys, and one part time, one full time, um, and I am virtually the only. I do all the breeding. Nobody does the breeding here but me, especially when they're coming out of the waters and the genetics and things like that. So there is just no way I could throw any more on my plate. And I tell you, I've said this many times to people. If there comes a time where I can't do that anymore, I don't want to run this business. I don't want to be here because I don't think that's fair to you guys. When you're buying a product and you call our number, you're getting me. You're getting the owner on the phone to ask questions, and I know exactly what's going on down there because I take care of them. And I think that's good customer service. I think that's just what you guys deserve to know when you are buying something, whether it's an animal or a feeder. 10,000% honest when you get me on the phone about what's happening, or if there's some kind of delay, or how a certain spawn is doing, and I just think you deserve to know that. So, getting into more than frogs, I don't think I can properly go ahead and give that information at level of customer service, and I wouldn't be interested in that anymore because that's the part that I enjoy doing for you guys. Gets crazy sometimes with the phone calls, but that's okay as long as everybody's patient. Tomato frogs as pets, are they good? There are three species. Formerly, they were considered one. I love tomato frogs. I think tomato frogs are one of the most underrated species out there. I mean, because when they're little, they just look like little like bronze leaves. They're camouflage. They're not red, and nobody ends up wanting them because they want that red color. But that comes in within 2 3 months. I think they're a fantastically hardy species. Ridiculously easy setup. The way they just hammer the food real quick with the flick of their tongue. It's amazing. And at the moment, we can only get, well, I don't want to say we can get. I mean, there's three different species. It could. I'm going to mess this up. Gutini, the Antagoni Bay. I always pronounce it wrong. I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong. And the Insularis. Insularis has come in infrequently. I've had a group in the past. A few years ago, they were really um, a brown tan, not red at all. Kind of a boring type species, and I ended up selling the group. And I wish I didn't. I wish I would have kept them just to have all three. Now we do have the other two species here, um, and I think once the true tomato, the Antagonabe, is bred more regularly, it will be the next big thing. Because there's no red out there, no red like this color. And to simply have them in your hands and see them is absolutely amazing. It's going to be a frog that, when it's affordable, I think you're going to see in every Frogger's collections. They're, again, just as hardy as the other ones, but the color is breathtaking. Now you can't even purchase them if you wanted to. I know there's 4 or 5 of us out there that have very small groups of captive bred that did come in, that were, I think in the next year you're going to see somebody have a spawn of them, but they're very expensive. You're not going to be able to get them for under $100. They're way more expensive than your regular ones, but in time they're going to become more affordable. And honestly, they're amazing. You got to have them. I love looking at mine every day. Um, Chocolate milks, Amazons. I've heard that they are challenging to breed. What do you think? I've only ever seen a few breeds of them. I wonder how big the gene pool is. That's a great question. They're not challenging to breed. They're just as easy to breed, I believe, as the regular milks. The reason you haven't seen them is because they just about a year and a half ago started coming into the country. The Suriname, the chocolates are the Suriname milk frog or golden eye. I had one of the first groups that came in. We weren't interested in breeding at the time, and that was back when we did a lot of imports, and most of the business was wild caught, and we've moved from that since. So I got them back in because these are captive bred. We're going to hold a group for ourselves to breed as well. But from what I understand, there's no difference in them reproducing than the regular milks, and the gene pool is actually even better because they came from a group of wild caught animals, the parents. So these are F1s, or You can't get pure captive animals, unless you went and got them out of the box off the boat from Suriname. But then they're wild caught. So I think they're fantastic. They look like little aliens. They look like they're fake. I love them. With the bright orange hands and yellow arms. I mean, they're so underrated. Um, and I think they're going to become a staple as well in tree frog collections. Um, Amazon's same way. Amazon milks. If you set them up the right way, there's some tricks to everything. They produce fairly regularly. In fact, sometimes you have to stop them from producing. Any tips of keeping moss alive? Some mosses aren't going to stay alive because we can't reproduce it. The conditions like some of the mosses that you purchase have to go through a freeze thaw cycle because that's what would happen out in the wild. If they're collected from places that are temperate like that. So that's tough. And moss altogether can be a tough plant to keep in an aquarium. They require a nice high humidity, but they also like the ventilation. So it's very difficult, which is why I like to use the sheet moss and the mood moss. It's going to keep that green a little bit longer, but it can be very difficult to keep on a much longer scale. I mean, it definitely looks a lot nicer in an aquarium than sphagnum moss. Mood moss, in my opinion, is really cool looking, but I think to be honest with you, it has to be changed. I don't have much luck keeping it in a tank much longer than like 8 months to a year. You also need really great lights for that too. So I think it's like sphagnum moss. You use it, and then it basically is going to serve its purpose, and then you have to go get more. But I think it does last a lot longer than that as well. Do you think having cheaper frogs or animals it makes keepers not value them as much as others? Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll be honest with you, of all the animals that we have on the site, the cheaper ones sell the least. My worst seller are green Pac-Mans. Consistently every month, they're the last on the list. Um, and we have a lot of people that call and like the samurais when they go for sale and the emeralds. They're not cheap Pac-Man. You're talking $65 to $90 and they sell out. Um, so I think people value the more expensive ones. I think um, but I think yeah, it's sometimes when you're more in the show atmosphere, when it's an impulse buy and they buy a $10 or $15 green Pac-Man because their little one wants it and it's a we're gonna buy this today. Yeah, I think that type of purchase it makes it different and you're going to have that in every animal field. It doesn't matter because there's always going to be that lower echelon of price tag. Now that might be a lot higher in our terms of frogs, but I also saw this as well in dart frogs, and not just Pac-Man. Some of the $25 or dart frogs and $30. It's an impulse buy, and that's the biggest thing, which is why I preach researching and getting the products you need because you might spend $25 on that strawberry frog, but you're going to easily spend $65 to set it up right, proper supplementation, and the proper food sources. So at the end of the day, it's not a cheap investment. I mean, versus let's say you go out and buy a $2,000 dog or something. Yeah, I guess $100 setup with frog isn't that bad. But I see your point, and I would say I don't really see that here on our retail side. Greens are our most popular wholesale animal, but I think it's because a lot of people take them to shows. And to be honest with you, I try really hard not to make a lot of greens. You notice the most of the stuff that I try to keep in stock is that weird specialty stuff. The higher, it's not because it's a higher selling value. It's because I mean I like the stuff and people really love the stuff, so I just like having it in there. Tom, you are always late. We are 40 minutes in, Tom. Where have you been? I'm just joking. Thanks for joining us. Um, I love green pie bands too. Greens and tans. One of my favorites. Ooh, you can't use that word, seller. As soon as you put the word animals, see, I'm going to show it, but be careful with that. Even on here, if you put an animal and put the word seller or price tag, it flags it on this side. So be careful with that. And are they African bullfrogs big sellers? No, not at all. We do carry them periodically, the albinos, um, and we maybe sell 50 a year, and that's about it. It's a very specialty item. I love them; they're cool, but they're not a huge part of what we do, at least for me. How many tables will we have at the next Hamburg? Not just one table. I don't really plan on bringing a lot of those supplies with us. I mean, unless it's pre-ordered, we'll bring any order. But Hamburg and those shows are so busy for me because it's just me. We're not gonna go ahead and bring all those supplies. But we'll have stuff like night crawlers and the wax worms and things like that for people to purchase there because I feel like that's not always available. The specialty diets that for the frogs. So we'll bring that stuff to the shows. But again, we'll bring anything to the show for free for pickup, but you might not be able to see it there for sale, the whole array, because it's just too much stuff for me. It's all right. It's okay about the comment. It's no big deal. A lot of people don't think that the transfers over to YouTube, but obviously, they watch their P's and Q's as well on here. But is what it is there. Any other questions before we wrap it up, guys? Give me a couple seconds here. I'm always worried that these Q&A sessions aren't going to go very long and we're not going to have a lot to chat about. And then we get into like 40 minutes. And it's like, wow, what happened? 40 minutes went by. And you guys ask great questions. I love it. Check on here quick. Make sure we don't have any other questions on the page. Bullfrogs in general, I think bullfrogs in general are very tough to keep in captivity because they require a decent sized setup when they're adults. They're dirty frogs. They require a lot of cleaning, a clean system, which a lot of people don't end up giving them. They don't. I think they buy them when they're small, and they don't realize that these bullfrogs get huge. And bullfrogs are one of the weird frogs that actually douche in the water. So they bring in water up into their bladders, and then they flush out all the impurities. So the water is constantly getting fecal debris and urates in it, and it could get dirty really quick. Like they could tox out really quick. So I love bullfrogs, but they're much better if someone has the room for a nice big indoor pond or something like that. So that'd be great. Yeah, exactly, Tom. I agree. I think they make good pond frogs. Now albinos get picked off by birds outside. So if you have it in enclosed like porch or something, I think they're phenomenal. The other thing too is they're gonna make some noise if you end up getting some males. So be ready for that. They're pretty loud. That's for sure. Leopard frogs. You know what? I've honestly never kept a leopard frog. When I was a kid, I would go out and catch them all the time. You're going looking for salamanders, and I saw so many leopard frogs. I've never kept them in captivity. I'm not really a rana guy. Um, I don't keep the only ranas I actually have down there. I have some Bell's frogs, which I think are the prettiest frogs, and I keep them. I really enjoy them, and maybe one day we'll breed them. But I'm not really big into the semi-aquatic and aquatic things. I guess the budget's frog being semi-aquatic is one of the only frogs that I kind of go into that world a little bit. But most things because I deal with water so much with tadpoles in the tadpole room, I think I just would rather not deal with water with the rest of the room, to be honest with you. Um, yeah, they are dirty. The bullfrogs are definitely dirty, and any random frog's dirty. They definitely can. I think leopard frogs are really pretty. Leopard frogs, pickerel frogs, but yeah, you're right, Tom. They can purchase. You can purchase tadpoles on various sites. They sell them mostly for like schools, where you can watch them be raised in the classroom setting, and the kids get to see them get their back legs, and it's a great teaching product. I shouldn't say product. That's the wrong thing to say. It's a live animal, a great teaching tool that they can use. I remember I'd love to see it when I was a kid. It was amazing. How does this fish-like thing grow into a frog? And I think that's what kids need nowadays. They need more hands-on interactions like that. Definitely. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to be wrapping this up now. Again, I appreciate it so much that you came and spent some time with me here on Saturday night. We're not going to do one of these next weekend. We'll probably do one the weekend after. So the last 2 weekends of the month, we'll end up doing it. Think of some topics that we want to talk about. I know we've hit genetics, we've hit supplementation tonight. Anything you guys want to talk about? I just think it's great to have this kind of like 45 minutes to sit down and just chat, and you guys can just soak up whatever information I can give you. So again, I appreciate you coming. Stay safe. Hopefully, this whole pandemic thing is about to end, and we'll be able to be out and doing things again. But until then, again, I appreciate everybody's support. I appreciate you checking out the new stuff on the site. And yeah, no, sorry, I just got sidetracked. I unfortunately can't do them during the week because I'm a single dad and I have my little one right now. The little one's at grandma's sleeping over, so we have this quiet time. But um, a nice quiet 45 minutes with a 6-year-old would never happen. So unfortunately, I can't. It's gonna almost always be a Friday or Saturday night. Again, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Until next time, guys, take care and be safe.